Haylor's got some fancy popsicles. They taste like Skittles. Oh yeah, are y'all debating about nachos? Did somebody bring these to the land? We saw they were in the lake, so I saw someone put them in where we normally have.
I'm getting Dixie. I'm getting Mark Hadley. Mark my spot.
Cheese on the cookies. Yeah, it feels like summer. I mean, I know it's gonna be. I know it'll be harder than this.
Chips with cheese?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, that was when it like changes it, but you can, like just fade it out. That way we don't. Okay.
Oh, you noticed that.
Daddy, look.
Your
I made half
chef.
of it.
Alright, you wanted a little ketchup too.
Now, what do you want to drink?
I'm not sure if I should make them. I guess I can get cheese off the here. Free cheese. I mean, it probably be okay, just sog up the side. Sure, yeah. Yeah, let me turn it. Chili flavor.
Big chainsaws and everything, and I felt like I needed to go out there and help them.
You have to eat all your toothbrush, okay?
There's too many crumbs in there. So, then the top one. All right, guys. I'm going to be in Ecclesiastes chapter 1. Ecclesiastes. Does anybody know what the word Ecclesiastes means? What it actually means? The preacher. The preacher. Chapter 1. We're going to be in just verse 1 through 3. So Ecclesiastes just means the preacher. Alright, so verse 1 says, the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Okay, kids, how many of y'all know who wrote the book of Ecclesiastes?
God.
It says, yeah, he's the son of David, that's Solomon. Did you know that Solomon's dad was David, who killed Goliath? Did you know that?
Oh, yeah.
You did? Okay. So the words of the preacher, the son of David, king of Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. All right, next question. How many of y'all know what the word vanity means? All right, so Brother John knows. Vanity. All right, have you ever heard of a piece of furniture called a vanity? And what do? You look in a mirror, right? That's one of the reasons it's called a vanity. You know what the root word of vanity is? Vain. Vain. Sometimes I tell people my name's Toby Bain and they think I say Toby Vain, which is very offensive. But, so vain. Vanity just means that it's kind of pointless, or vanity is kind of like, what if I had a car, like my car right now that's not working, but it looks good, okay? You waxed it, and you clean it up real nice, but then it won't run without the wipers going off and the backup lights coming on for some reason, okay? Vanity of vanity, said the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Do you think that he wanted you to remember the word vanity in that verse? Because he said vanity 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in one verse.
And it says all is vanity on the first part.
Yeah, I mean, so vanity of vanity, saith the preachers. Vanity of vanity, all is vanity. What profit hath a man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? First off, I don't picture Solomon doing a lot of labor personally. I think you get a lot of hiring people to do things, but sometimes hiring people to work is just as hard as working, right? In some instances.
Amen.
Amen. Especially depends on who you hire, because then sometimes you might need to rehire someone to fix whoever you hire. You ever seen Homes on Homes? Have you ever heard of that show? It's just, nobody would like that show unless you like watching people redo people's mistakes in construction. That's all the show is. So he comes in, so a contractor does a bad job, doesn't finish the job, and this guy's last name's Holmes. He comes in and he does it correct. He puts, like if they did, like, do y'all know what a junction box is in electric? Okay, he came in a room one time and there's like 30 junction boxes when he pulled down the sheetrock. And you're not supposed to have that many junction boxes in one room. So he kind of redid that. Or the plumbing was just horrible. He redoes that. And it makes more work when somebody doesn't do their work very well. Well, we're going to talk about this thing of vanity, but we're just going to take these 3 verses, and there's some things we can learn that was in this book of Ecclesiastes. But first I'll tell you a little joke, okay? See if this is funny, kids. There were 3 guys, and they were shipwrecked on a deserted island. A deserted island means that they couldn't get off of it. Nobody lived on that island except them. And there was no Walmart there, no McDonald's there, nothing, okay? They've been there for a while. Now one day this magic lamp, now this is not a true story by the way, a magic lamp washes up on the shore and they find it. So one of them rubs the lamp and what do you think comes out?
A genie.
A genie. How'd you know that? You've seen Aladdin? Okay.
Yeah.
The genie says, I'll grant you each one wish. Now I thought you were supposed to get 3, but in this joke you get 1 wish. So the first guy says, I really, really miss my wife's cooking. I wish I could be back home ready to eat one of her great dinners. The genie waves his hand, and poof, the man's sitting at his table at home, ready to eat. The second man says, I've never been married, but I do miss my girlfriend. I wish right now I was just on my way to pick her up for a date. He's in my truck, and poof, he was in his car on his way to pick her up. Third man says, I'm really glad those guys got their wishes, but I sure do miss them. I wish they were back here again. Boom. Okay. Sometimes that's how life goes, right? All right, so I want you to think about this. Imagine with me tonight that you could have anything you wanted. And if I asked you, I said, you get one thing, and please don't tell me what you want, because I can only imagine what some of y'all would say. But if you sat down like all day, how many of y'all think if you sat down all day and tried to think of just one wish you could have, you'd have a hard time picking something? Like you'd be like, okay, let me try this. And you try to cheat the system a little bit, right? You'd be like, I wish for more wishes, right? For infinity wishes. That's what you wish for, right? But let's say you couldn't do that. You only get one actual wish. What would you do? How many of you would ask for lots of green money? Anybody? Come on. You liars. None of y'all raise your hand. How many of y'all would ask for some money? How much money? Heath, how much money?
$1 million.
$1 million. You're thinking little, man. You got to go bigger than that.
100.
$100, okay?
1,000.
1,000. We went. All right.
100,000.
A trillion? I don't even know if that's a word. Okay.
5,000.
So, all right. So some of y'all would ask for money.
1,000,000.
And by the way, $1 million is not what it used to be. Okay. So,
5,000.
all right, that's enough. That's enough on the numbers. Because first off, let's just assume y'all want as much money as possible. I think that's what I would assume. But, so some of y'all, how many of y'all would ask for a long life, like to live to be 1,000? Anybody want to live to be 1,000? Okay. How many of you would ask for a new job that was better? Now, actually, you know what? You just asked for money so you wouldn't have a job, right? That's how we play the game here, right? So, did you know that God one time actually asked Solomon, basically gave him a prayer he could get what he wanted? Did you know that, guys? It actually happened in the 1 Kings. And Solomon's the one who wrote this book. But hey, guys, listen. Did you know that there was a person that actually God asked, and you know what? He did get what he wanted, okay? Now, if I asked you, like I said, if you were really to share in your heart what you would want, I mean, you can come up with a lot of things. I mean, and I think in church you'd say some things like this. You'd be like, well, it'd be my prayer that everybody on planet Earth would get saved. You know, and that's a pretty good wish. I like that. Or maybe you'd say, I wish that we have an end to world poverty, right? Or maybe everybody in the world would have food enough to live the rest of their life, whatever it is. But I think most people, and I'm not being mean, most people would ask for money. Here's why I believe that. Because most of the people I know, most of their time is spent making money. Most of their time is spent thinking about how to get more money or pay for more things or whatever it is. And let me put it like this. I hardly ever see people, which actually I told Ruth I want to buy an old minivan because they didn't have electrical problems. But you see, most people don't go older unless they're going for a classic that costs way more than their vehicle, right? I think you go back to a restoration. But most people are hey kids, and listen to this, most people are looking for money. And I got to tell you something about Solomon. He had more money than you're ever going to have. He did get money. He had a lot of it. And he wrote, vanity of vanity, saith the preacher, all vanity. He said, it's all pointless. I mean, he got all that money. And I'm just going to summarize what his prayer was. What happened was, basically, he came to God and he said, I'm just like a child. I really don't know what to ask. I mean, he was really humble about it. They think he was probably about 20 years old whenever he prayed this. That's what historians believe. He said, I don't know how to govern between right and wrong and all this, and I don't know what to do. So he basically just asked for wisdom. He just said, God, I'd like to have the wisdom to do the right thing. Now listen, kids, we have a great advantage today because we do have wisdom to do the right thing. We have the Bible. And if you read all through Ecclesiastes, and I'm not giving anything away with this, the very end of Ecclesiastes says that in conclusion, we're supposed to fear God and keep His commandments. That's our whole conclusion. Look, if God says go to church, just go to church. Don't do it for any other motivation. Just do it because He said do it. See, some people follow God for motives. Like, God, I want to follow you so my kids will do right one day. No, I just want to follow you. I've seen my kids, and they got mental issues, so I don't know if I can stand on that. But so, see, look, Keith even proved it with that face. But I can stand on the promises of God. Did you know that you can do everything God told you to do and get put in prison? Did you know somebody got, anybody in the Bible get put in prison following God? Joseph, yeah. You know you can do everything God wanted to do and get thrown in the lion's den? Right? So, don't do it. A lot of people say, I want to follow God so He'll bless me immensely and I'll have a big house and I'll have everything I want. That's not good motivation. Follow God because He said, follow me. That's it. Do it no matter what. Don't do it. Look, we're not here. God's not bribing us to follow. You understand that? He's not like, hey, follow me, I'll do this for you. Do it for Him if He doesn't give you anything. Do it for Him if actually tomorrow's a worse day than the day before. But, so he asked for wisdom. And God said, because you asked for wisdom, and because I like your prayer request, He basically told him, I'm going to give you riches. I'm also going to give you long life. And He gave him more than just wisdom. But He did say this, you do have to obey my statutes and my commands. That was part of the long life thing. He kind of put a stipulation on it. He said, if you'll follow me, you'll have all this stuff. Now, if you look, He did get riches. He did get all, but you know what? He didn't have a great life. And if you read the Bible, it's because he didn't follow God's command. He wrote a bunch of the Proverbs, and he wrote the Ecclesiastes, and I want to tell you, he didn't follow most of the things he wrote. But they still were wise things that should be followed. So, I just want to look at near the end of his life, we start to see that he kind of, although he should have had a great life, we see some things in here where actually it didn't go too well. In fact, the world in which Solomon lived in, by the way, if you look historically at it, would have been very similar to now, where people didn't like the way things were being run, and they kind of would like to go to the good old days. And there's about half the country that'd like to go back to the good old days, right? We'd like to say, hey, let's do what we used to do. So he tried some things. Listen to what he tried to be happy. Okay? He tried possessions, basically material things. I know people who think if they have a nicer truck, they'll be happy. But you know what you'll want after you get that nicer truck? You'll want a nicer truck. Right? And who knows what... The nicer truck is just the one you don't have. That's all it is. Okay? That's the real stipulation. You can have there are guys with $70,000 trucks, and they're driving and they're looking at trucks that might even cost less than theirs, and they're still like, oh, I wish I had that truck. They might look at one and say, wish I didn't have the payments on this truck, wish I had that truck, right? So possessions, like a house. You know what I found out is, when kids come to our house, they love our house. They don't, there's some imperfections. It's awkward in some ways. But people like our house. The kids especially love the house. They just love the stuff. And they just like the bunk beds, and they like the way that this room goes down to this room and this room goes to that. Now they don't pay the light bill. That makes them not like it as much. But they hear that gripe about it a lot, so it affects their life. But I'm just saying, possessions don't make you happy. And if you don't, you say, okay, I don't believe that. Well, Solomon wrote a book of the Bible, and God kept it in there, and he was very specific that possessions did not make him happy. But then he tried something else. Pleasure tried to make him happy. Is there something you really like to do? How many of you kids like to go to Silver Dollar City? If you went to Silver Dollar City every day, you think you'd be happy forever? Trust me, you would not. First off, you hear me gripe a lot because I don't want to be there even one day. But, you know, amusement parks were not made for the dads. Okay, that's obvious. Dads get amusement in the living room watching TV and quiet. Okay? And amusement parks are made where dads act like they're having fun while they go on things that try to make them throw up. Okay? But kids like going to amusement parks. If I told my kids, if I said, hey, we're going to go to Disney World, they'd be pretty happy about that. I'd be pretty sad about it, but they'd be happy. Pleasures. How many of y'all like you have a favorite food, right? Maybe ice cream, maybe pizza, maybe a Baconator. But even if you ate a Baconator every day, trust me, it won't take very many days and you wouldn't want a Baconator. If you had one every lunch, there'd be probably by the 5th day, you'd be like, you know, I think I'll have something else. I'll get a chicken sandwich, right? You change it up or something. So pleasure, and he went through, let me tell you, Solomon withheld no pleasure from himself. He had every pleasure on planet Earth that he could find. He tried everything. He tried alcohol. He thought if he had enough wives, why would a guy say he has wisdom and think more wives was going to give him pleasure? I don't know. But, I mean, that doesn't make sense. He had power. I mean, he had almost as much power as Joe Biden. But, I mean, he had power. He could tell people what to do, and they would do it. And he had something we call prestige, which means that, I mean, people looked up to him because he was so powerful, because he had so much money. But you know what he did? He looked and he basically, here's what he said. Here's what vanity means. He basically said, is life even worth living? Is there any point to life? I mean, Solomon was at the end of his life and he said, I don't even see a purpose in this thing. I don't understand why we're even doing this. So he had everything we think, like, be honest, how many of you have ever chased money and you kind of noticed, I'm chasing money a little bit, right? Come on. How many of you ever chased pleasure? You said, I was chasing, and I had to step back a little bit. Or how many you chase just possessions in general, not necessarily money, but just the possessions. And I'm telling you, when you look at this, he's saying, there's some different ways to translate the word vanity. But, you know, one translation even calls it meaningless. But vanity means this, okay? Useless. It's almost like he's saying everything's useless. There's no point to it. When he's saying vanity. Everything, it's all, you ever heard the phrase, it's all smoke and mirrors? Right? And that's referring to like magic tricks. You know, with smoke and mirrors, you can do some pretty cool tricks. You know, David Copperfield was a famous magician, and he did this magic trick where he made an elephant disappear. Like a full-size elephant disappeared. And he had a cage outside, and this elephant was in it. And he did something, and the elephant was gone. But you know what? In between the bars was just mirrors. And if you had it just right, you couldn't, the way the reflection was from the mirrors, it gave an appearance that you were looking through this cage, and the elephant was gone. But the elephant was just right there. Smoke and mirrors. In other words, it's pointless. It's meaningless. There's words like empty or unsatisfactory or whatever it is, but just like it says in the Bible, like life is just a vapor. It's here for a little while, then it's gone. I mean, he just started saying that stuff. You know, different scholars says basically the word vanity means whatever's left after you break a soap bubble. That's what it is. Nothing. Okay? And he's saying that he had money. You understand, he had a great house. They spent, I forget how many years building his house. I mean, he had the most elaborate house you could think of at the time. So he actually had the best. Can you imagine having the best house on planet Earth? Like today, I'm sure the best house on planet Earth is pretty big. And I'm sure it's pretty expensive. I know that Bill Gates' house is 60,000 square feet. Does anybody want to clean 60,000 square feet or pay the electric bill on 60,000 square feet? This church is 7,000 square feet, like 7,200 square feet. So 60,000, You got like, you'd almost have 10 of these churches of square footage. And he has electronic stuff for everything, right? You know, robots are driving around or something, I don't know. But, you know, I'm just saying, Solomon had all that money, and yet he said, this is pointless. And so, as Solomon looked at his life, you know what I think? I think he wasn't too proud of what he accomplished. Like, I mean, I think at the end of his life, he said, I should have did something better than this, right? I mean, whatever I did was pointless, and I wasted my time. So, the next thing is, what do we gain? I like this. Y'all know the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? You ever heard of that book? There's a guy named Stephen Covey that wrote it, but he said, many people are climbing the ladder of success, but when they get to the top, they find the ladder is leaning on the wrong wall. Right? And that's how some of us live our life. We're just climbing. We get there and we go, well, wow, this isn't where I wanted to be. Right? And I want to tell you something. Is there any value or is there any profit? He just is asking that question. When you're reading that, what profit have the man of all his labor which he taketh under the sun? He's like, what's wrong? Like, what are we doing all this for? You know, people, I mean, let's think about, what is it, Bezos, Jeff Bezos owns Amazon. And he's one of the richest guys now. He got a divorce and made his wife the second richest person in America from the divorce. And he's the first richest. He just keeps gaining money. During the coronavirus, he made more money because everybody's ordering everything from Amazon. Just like Walmart, you know, made a lot of money during the coronavirus. So he's got all this money. But you heard me, he got divorced, right? He can't even stay with his wife. And he's done, how many of you ever use Amazon? Okay. So I say, I don't want to, but I have to. No. Okay. Because you can't, you know, Radio Shack. Remember when we used to have Radio Shack? There's a lot of stuff I used to buy from Radio Shack. And now I'm just like, I guess if you don't go to Amazon, what are you going to do? Go to Walmart.com. But maybe you don't want to buy from Walmart. I don't know. Anymore, I don't know if I want to buy from anybody, but it's all from China, so it all leads back there. And so, or as our ex-president would say, China, or whatever he would say. He'd say it a little bit wrong when he said it. But I want to say this. I do think that it's probably true. A lot of people are living their life in a very meaningless fashion. I mean, they're trying to get all their ducks in a row, but for what? What are these ducks in a row for? You know, Jesus told us in Matthew chapter 6 that you're not supposed to store treasures on earth. Because he says that's where they rust, right? Thieves break in and take it. He says your treasure is supposed to be in heaven. And let's be honest, most people aren't trying to put treasures in heaven. I said it this morning. I wonder how many American Christian parents, before they go to bed each night, pray that their kids will grow up to serve Jesus. It's probably a low number, would you agree? Would you think if, let's say that the numbers are right, it was like 90% Christians, which that's not right. Okay, let's say that 90% of Christians in America, how many of them do you think are really praying their kids serve Jesus? A lot of them, have you noticed they're praying their kids are happy? Well, it's not working. A lot of kids aren't happy. You know why? You get happy by being holy. You get happy by serving. You don't get happy by giving. You know why? Because Solomon got everything his flesh ever wanted. He was not a happy guy. He was depressed. I mean, if anybody sounds depressed, read the book of Ecclesiastes. Doesn't sound like a guy who's happy-go-lucky. You know who sounded like a happy guy in the Bible? Daniel. He seemed real happy. Didn't he? He purposed in his heart not to eat the king's meat. He seems upbeat. Joseph seems really upbeat about it. They put him in prison and everything. When you think of Joseph and Daniel, don't you think these guys were just like, I mean, a rock could fall on their foot and they'll go, well, that was the Lord's will. You know, they just seemed like they were pretty happy. But Solomon, it's like, all I got is 1,000 women and a big castle, and but do I really have anything? You know, I mean, it's like he had everything, and yet he was so not happy. We can live any way we want to. That's the beauty of God. He'll let you live any way you want. He allows you to have free will. You do anything you want. But you're also going to have repercussions of everything you do. So Solomon comes to this and he starts looking. And honestly, if you read this whole book, I think he's a little bit fearful of death just because he knows his life wasn't much of anything. I mean, sure, maybe he was saved, but he knows he didn't do anything with his life. With all that he had and all that he could have done. And then he talks about this. He says, under the sun. If you read this book, he says under the sun 29 times. Every time he's talking about under the sun, he's talking about things on earth. Okay? Then he says another phrase throughout the book, under heaven. When he says under heaven, he's talking about things of heaven. But he's kind of a comparison sometimes. Under the sun and under heaven. Under the sun and under heaven. And I'll tell you, we need to understand that there is something under the sun and there's something over the sun. Right? And the thing over the sun is more important than the thing under the sun. And if you get that, you'd have a better life under the sun. Right? But, so he's reflecting on life. He's talking about all this stuff. And basically, he comes to this. And listen up, kids. Because not everybody's going to tell you this. If you go to public school, they're not going to tell you this. Most of the people around you aren't going to tell you this. But life without God is vanity. Life without Jesus is vanity. It's pointless. I mean, you know, Thomas Wolfe once was writing about the Bible. He said, of all I've ever seen and learned, he was writing about this book of Ecclesiastes. He said, this book seems to me the noblest, the wisest, and most powerful expression of man's life upon this earth. And it really does. So I want to tell you two things. One, life apart from God is empty. And going along with that too is only God can satisfy you. You can try a lot of things. Kids, have you ever seen Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? The show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Now I know we've watched, what's the other one where they, Deal or No Deal, they try to win $1 million on that. On Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, they ask them questions. And they've got, 4 choices. And they get some help, okay? Now, one of the lifelines is what? Ask the audience. Ask the audience. And, I was thinking about this. Most people live like they're on the game of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Okay? Because when they want to do something, sometimes they just ask the audience. What does asking the audience refer to? The majority. Right? Whoever's around you, you're like, what do you think I should do? Right? And if you're in America today, the majority is going to tell you something very foolish. They'll tell you something. First they'll say the word racist somewhere in the explanation. Okay? But they're going to tell you something very foolish. Ask the audience. So you're like, I don't really know the answer, so I'm just going to poll the audience. I love it when they poll the audience and it's like 50-50. And I'm just like, oh, there you go. Okay. Or I've seen times with the audience, I was obviously wrong, like 60%. It was the wrong answer, you can tell. But sometimes they want to go with it because that's what the audience says. And that's what a lot of people do. They're following the majority. They're like, this is what the majority of people do. Okay? And listen, you don't need to follow the majority of anything. That's a Broadway. I recommend you don't follow the majority of what Christians do. Because the majority of Christians today aren't following God. I stand by that. So that's the first thing they do. So Heath, make sure you don't Google. Listen, Google is evil because it makes you follow the majority. You Google, and you know what you take? Like it's got to be one of the first 2 or 3 things on there, and you take it. And by the way, if you want to watch some documentaries of how evil Google is, just let me know. I'll get you a copy, okay? Because they do some things to manipulate what comes up on search engines. And they don't deny it. They do that for elections, but they do that for other things. They're trying to get you to go to the answer that they want you to have. And we're living in a world where you will Google something and take it like it's the Bible. Actually, not like the Bible because nobody follows the Bible anymore. But you'll probably follow it more than you follow the Bible. And it's scary. Then there's another lifeline they did. It was called Phone a Friend. phone a friend. You can call one of your friends. Did you know this? Hey, anybody in here, have you ever asked your friend advice and they gave you the wrong answer? Okay. How many of y'all know some friends you can call and you know what answer they give you? So you call them so you get that answer. Right? You manipulate yourself. You know they're going to say, do this, so you call them. Like if I call Cody and say, should I do this? I know what he's going to say. And I don't like it, so I call John and I know what he's going to say. See, I call Cody and I say, should I fix my brake line with JB Well? He says, you should go to a mechanic and get a real brake line. And I say, Brother John, what do you think? Should I fix it with JB Well? I call him, he's like, go for it. What are you going to lose? Just your life. Okay. No. And so, but whoever I want to go with, I just call and go with. All right. Now, when they made the newer Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, they did add another one. Now, it wasn't originally on there. Do you know what the third lifeline is? It's Ask an Expert. Have you ever seen when they did that? Now, they had different hosts. I mean, I only really watched it when Regis was on there, but they had Ask the Expert. But here's the problem. You did not know they had experts, but you didn't know what they were experts in. And so you could ask them, but it might not be their expertise. Right? So there was a risk there. Let me tell you, if you ask anybody to give you advice and they are not a follower of God, they are not experts on life. The only experts on life are people who follow the Bible. You know why? Because the Bible was written by the main expert, right? And I love this phrase. Remember, experts built the Titanic. You know, but amateurs built the ark, right? So which one would you rather get on, the ark or the Titanic? Okay. And so Solomon, here he is, and what he's saying is simply this. He's saying, at the end of the day, he gets to the end of the chapter. The end of the whole book. And you get to, he says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. See, a lot of people are like, hey, look, I'm doing fine. I've got a nice house. I've got a car. I've got a job. I go to church some. I must be fine. Listen to me. You don't want to get to be 80 years old and look back on life and go, what did I even really accomplish? Right? It's not, you know the game of life where you have all the money at the end and everything? Real life's not like that. You're 80 years old and you have a bank account with $5 million in it, but you know one day you're going to be dead. Trust me, that $5 million won't make you feel anything. You're going to look back and see what you did for the Lord. I would rather look back and say, you know what? I made it to every church service that I could possibly make it to. I tried to reach as many people as I possibly could reach. I tried to pray with my kids, pray with my wife. I tried to, and the list should be all things you did for God. That's what the list should be. Because in the end, you're about to meet Him, right? And so it's a time to look at that. So let's bow our heads and pray. God, we love you. God, help us trust you above all things. I know this world has a lot of things that they're throwing at us. But God, let us not end up like Solomon and say vanity is vanity. Let us make sure that we know for sure that we're trusting in you and we're following you, even if it puts us in prison. The motive, Lord, is not for blessings. The motive is to please you. But I believe you bless those who please you. And sometimes the blessings come in many different ways that can't be explained. And God, I pray you help us see that. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, we'll dismiss.